video in the woods. I've always liked hiking out where it's quiet, away from traffic, phone signals, and everything else that makes you forget what the woods feel like at night. This happened last fall, up near Alpena, Michigan. It was me and two friends, Nate and Kayla. We'd planned a long weekend loop through the state forest land west of town. Nothing extreme, just far enough out that we wouldn't see another soul for days. On our last night, we pushed it too far. Nate insisted there was a shortcut back to where we'd left the car, but it turned out to be an old logging trail that went on forever. By the time we realized it was a dead end, the sun was already dropping behind the trees. We were exhausted, feet sore, shoulders raw from heavy packs. When we stumbled across what looked like an abandoned campground clearing, we agreed we'd stay put till morning. Rusty fire ring, half-rotted picnic table, good enough. While Nate set up the tent, Kayla and I wandered the edge of the clearing looking for dry wood. That's when we noticed something strange through the birch trees. A faint bluish glow, like a bug zapper in the middle of nowhere. At first I thought it was someone's lantern or a hunter's trail cam light, but as we got closer, we saw letters flickering behind a cracked plexiglass sign. Galaxy Video. Below that, half lit in neon, be kind, rewind. It looked like something out of 2004, a tiny local rental store frozen in time. The windows were dusty but intact. Faded movie posters still clung to the inside of the glass. Spider-Man 2, Pirates of the Caribbean, Lord of the Rings. Nate didn't believe us when we ran back and dragged him out to see it. But there it was, just sitting there in a patch of woods with no road, no power lines, nothing that made sense. The glass front doors were wedged open with an old cinder block. Inside, the overhead fluorescence buzzed to life when we stepped on the mat, like the place was waiting for us. The air smelled stale, moldy carpet, and dry plastic. Shelves were still lined with rows of rental cases. Mostly DVDs, bright covers for bad comedies and action flicks, but tucked behind them were a few leftover VHS tapes with faded stickers. An old checkout counter stood near the entrance. Behind it, a busted tube TV perched on a wire cart. Next to the TV sat a rusty VCR and a single black tape. No cover. On its white label, written in thick marker, was just one word, Alpena. Nate laughed and said we should play it. Kayla told him to shut up. She said she's seen enough horror movies to know how that ends. But I was curious. I don't even know why. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe we just wanted a story to tell. The VCR's power light was still on. I popped the tape in, half expecting it to chew the ribbon or do nothing at all. The TV screen flickered, tracking lines skittering across the glass, then settled on an image. It was us, on the screen, standing right there behind the counter, live, but wrong. The angle was way up, like a camera was bolted to the ceiling, but when we looked, there was nothing there, just stained drop tiles and dead flies caught in the light. Nate started waving his arms, looking for a hidden lens. Nothing. The picture flickered again. Now it showed us from under the counter, like the camera was stuffed between the shelves of stale candy. We were all in the shot, but none of us were moving, except we were. Kayla stepped back. The TV showed her standing still. The screen cut to a new angle. This time it showed the front door from outside. Through the glass, we could see ourselves inside, but the sign above us burned brighter than before, and the trees outside were gone, replaced by endless black. Kayla grabbed my arm and whispered that we needed to leave. Nate leaned closer instead, trying to make out something on the screen. The picture changed again. Now it showed the three of us, but we were lying on the forest floor back at the campground clearing, next to the tent, fast asleep. Standing behind us in the dark was a fourth figure, tall, bent at the shoulders, its head cocked like it was listening for a secret. Kayla slammed the eject button. The tape whirred. The TV popped. The lights overhead flickered once, then buzzed back to life, brighter than before. We turned to leave, but the glass doors were shut. The cinder block was gone. Nate yanked the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I didn't think, just grabbed a DVD rack and smashed it into the door. The glass spiderwebbed, then gave way. The instant the cold air hit us, the store lights blinked off. The neon sign outside fizzled out. We ran like animals through the brush, branches whipping at our arms and faces. When we got back to the clearing, the faint blue glow was gone, like it had never been there. At first light, we broke camp and bushwhacked back to the main trail until we hit the road where we'd parked. No sign of the building when we looked back, just trees, thick and silent. I didn't realize until later the tape was still in my pack. It must have slipped in when we ran, or maybe I grabbed it without thinking. I honestly don't remember. When I got back home a few days later, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I told myself it was just some old blank tape, a fluke. But one night, I dug my parents' old VCR out of the basement and hooked it up to a tiny TV in my bedroom. I slipped the tape in. At first, it was just static. Then the screen flickered, that same scratchy blue light. And there I was on screen, sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the TV. I looked behind me, empty room. Back on the screen, I could see myself tilt my head, exactly like I was doing right then. But behind the on-screen version of me, the TV showed my bedroom door slowly opening. A shape stepped in, tall, bent at the shoulders, its head cocked like it was listening. I yanked the tape out so fast I nearly cracked the plastic. I still have it. I don't know why. It's buried in a shoebox at the back of my closet. Some nights, when I'm lying awake, I swear I can hear the tape winding itself. And sometimes, when I really can't sleep, I see my bedroom door start to open, even when I know it's locked. Past due. I've got a weird hobby. I like to hike out to places people gave up on. Not old, dusty ghost towns. I prefer the newer kind. Places that looked normal 20 years ago. A gas station, a mini mall, a row of cheap condos half built before the money dried up. Modern ruins. A few months ago, I was doing just that. I'd taken a solo trip through the backwoods near Grand Mesa in Colorado. I'd heard there was an entire development out there. Roads, sidewalks, street lamps, just abandoned to nature when the investors bailed in the early 2000s. I spent half a day wandering around empty foundations and caved-in garages. That's when I saw it. A squat building with a half-broken sign still bolted over the door. Galaxy Video. The last place I expected to find in the middle of nowhere. It looked like the roof might cave in if I sneezed too hard, but I couldn't help myself. When I was a kid, my older brother Danny and I used to live at our local Galaxy Video. Whole weekends spent wandering the aisles, picking out movies we'd never return on time. Danny was the worst about that. He'd rack up late fees until Mom would threaten to ground him. Once he even bragged about renting a stack of DVDs and keeping them so long they basically became his. When the chain finally shut down for good, he joked that Galaxy Video still owed him money. I always thought that was funny, until he disappeared. I don't talk about that part much. Danny vanished a year after our local store closed. One day, he just didn't come home. No note, no sighting, no body. A detective once asked if he might have run away because he owed the video store so much money. I laughed in his face. How do you vanish over a few old DVDs? I guess I thought maybe seeing another Galaxy Video would be like visiting an old friend. Something harmless. Inside, the front windows were coated in grime, but mostly intact. I pushed through the warped glass door and stepped in. It smelled like mildew and old plastic. The shelves were still standing, half full of cracked DVD cases. A dusty gumball machine by the door. It was like walking into a memory. So much nostalgia. In my mind, I could picture Danny strolling the aisles, picking out DVDs he had no intention of returning. It made me laugh. I wandered to the back where the staff counter was, all warped plywood and a dead old computer. That's when I noticed a section of the carpet behind the counter didn't match. When I pulled it back, there was a square of plywood cut into the floor with an old iron pull ring bolted to the middle. I stared at that ring for a long time. There shouldn't be a cellar in a video store, but there it was. I pried it open. A short ladder dropped down into the darkness. My flashlight caught the edge of concrete walls. Clean concrete, fresh almost. Against every instinct I have, I climbed down. The cellar was spotless, incredibly spotless. Old fluorescent lights buzzed to life when I flicked the switch near the base of the ladder. And there it was, at the far end, half buried in a concrete wall, a massive red cabinet, 6 feet tall, 3 feet wide, blood red like fresh paint that had never dried. It had black iron handles shaped like twisted vines. I froze for a long time, staring at that cabinet. Every cell in my body told me not to open that thing. I thought about snakes being inside it, or a body, or something worse. I almost turned back. Almost. When I finally opened it, the hinges barely made a sound. Inside the cabinet, there were no bones, not even any trash, just rows of clean, bright red DVD cases. No movie titles, no artwork, just names, hundreds of them. I traced the spines with my finger. Miller, Hayes, Jordan, Price. So many normal names, like a phone book pressed into plastic. Then I saw it, about halfway down. I froze. Danny Keller. My brother's name, stamped like a cheap rental sticker. I pulled it out and turned it over in my hands. No markings, no clue. But in the corner of the cellar sat an old combo TV DVD on a folding chair, plugged in, humming. I should have left it alone, but I didn't. I slid the disc in and stepped back. Static at first, then a bedroom I recognized. The blue comforter, the old movie posters, Danny's room, 10 years ago. He was lying on his stomach on his bed, chin propped on his hands, watching a movie. I could almost smell the stale popcorn and teenage sweat. Then I saw it. The window behind him, it creaked open, just an inch at first. The curtains lifted. Danny didn't notice, didn't flinch. Then, nothing dramatic. The video just cut out like someone hit stop. Black screen. I stood there staring at my reflection in the blank TV, the cabinet behind me. Silent. I don't remember climbing out. I just remember driving until I saw lights again. A week later, I was home, still pretending I'd imagined the whole thing, when an old friend knocked on my door. A storm pounding outside. He said he'd been helping his parents clean out their basement when he found an old DVD that was mine. He said I'd brought it over and we'd watched it together during a sleepover. He figured I'd want it back. I didn't want to take it, but I did. He left fast, ducking into the rain. I sat there on the couch, thunder rumbling, and I looked at the case. The blood drained from my face. The old rental sticker, still half peeling on the side, read, Galaxy Video. I could barely breathe. Then I heard it. The soft, slow creak. The unmistakable sound of a window sliding open behind me.